Hello, good day, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Out of This World Conversations. I'm your host, Gabe Mercado, and greetings from Baguio City. Today is a day of citywide brownout, but that didn't snuff out our enthusiasm to be with you today as we continue our series of talks with adults with awesome jobs. Today is a special episode because today we are going to be speaking to members of the Gilas Pilipinas men's national basketball team. And they're not just going to talk about basketball, but they're going to talk about the science behind basketball, the science behind sports. If it's your first time to join us here in our Out of This World conversations, this is brought to you by Vivi Stop Baguio. We're part of the worldwide Vivita network, and we're a place where kids aged 8 to 15 can explore their dreams on becoming the next inventor, the next engineer, the next teacher, the next curious mind, because we're a makerspace that's all about encouraging curiosity and a love for STEAM. That's science, tech, engineering, arts, and math. So, I invite you all to watch us for the next hour. Join in on the conversation. You can comment both on our Facebook channel and our YouTube channel if you have any questions for our guests today. And our guests today are Coach Sandy Arespacochaga, Coach Dex Aseron, and the team captain of Gilas Pilipinas, team captain Isaac Go. So they're here with us right now. Thank you guys for joining us today in our Out of This World conversations.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Gabe. Our pleasure.
Oh, we're so delighted to have you. And the kids were really excited. Pero yun nga, nagkataon. It's a citywide brownout in the entire Baguio. But they sent us their questions ahead. And they're very curious to see what's the science behind basketball and what's the science behind sports. So we're ready to listen. So, ang mauuna ba ngayon si Isaac?
Ako na ba muna? So,
Oo, mauuna ka daw eh.
okay. So I guess for me kasi I wanted to share lang what yung story ko, how I got into basketball. So I started really playing. I think what happened was, so this was my first real varsity team at 2008. I was grade 5. As you can see, lahat kami malungkot dahil talo kami nun. Ako lang masaya dahil di naman ako naglaro eh. So parang ako, uy, second place. Di naman ako naglaro eh. But prior to that, I think I really started playing basketball maybe 2-3 years prior when I was around 8 to 10 years old, when my brother would always drag me. Siya yung panganay sa family. Kailangan niya ng kalaro ng basketball because paminsan boring naman maglaro na mag-isa eh. So nahatak ako parate. Eventually, my brother tried out for the varsity team, and my classmate also, who played in the UAP, Jarrell, also tried out. So parang it made sense for me to go because my brother's there, my classmates there. Why not try? And I would play before this, but not really. I mean, for enjoyment lang. I was happy just to be there on the court. But I got a rude awakening when I joined practice the first time. And I think the first day, what they made us do is you had to run a suicide in 45 seconds.
Okay, what's a suicide, Isaac?
It's from the baseline to free throw, back to the baseline to half court, back to the baseline to the other free throw line, back to the baseline to baseline.
Oh gosh.
Ako lang yung hindi nakatapos. So parang at 45, there were a couple of us who didn't finish. It took me, I think, 1 minute and 30 seconds to finish it. So I think Coach Sandy, Coach Dex can attest gaano kabagal yun, because the standard now, I think, for pro players is 30 seconds.
Wow.
So yeah, so parang 2008, I was chill. Parang, okay, I made a team. I didn't play. But of course, as the older batch graduated, parang in 2009, I got a little bit more playing time, a little bit more opportunities. And another rule is, nahiya pa na maghanap ng picture na is dahil di ako masyado naglalaro. So, mahirap talaga maghanap ng picture ako naglalaro. So now medyo, okay, I can see na, I'm tall, okay, I'm playing, I'm decent. But parang, sa start pa lang siya eh, man, didn't really make the jump. Parang you would say na, if you watched me in 2009, you would think in 2020 that I'll be playing for Gilas. I think everyone would have said no.
How old were you in 2009?
2009, I was 2009, that was I was born 1996, so for 11 years old.
And how tall were you at 11?
6, I think I was 6 na, mga 6'1".
Okay.
So pretty tall for that, but not really playing. Parang you'd say that, he's tall, but not really basketball material, as I would say.
Right.
But I think in 2011 is where I think I made the first real big jump, where now it's starting to take a bigger role. I was getting better. If you guys can see the lower picture at the right side, that's not a joke. Tatlo lang kami noon naglaro, 3-on-5, isang quarter. So now parang may trust na there's a little bit more opportunity to get better. Parang I'm starting to build my game. But not still the point na parang I was being in consideration. Parang he's getting better, yeah, he's still tall, but there were still players ahead of me. In the rank, parang if you were gonna rank. And I was blessed na all of a sudden I got the opportunity to join the youth program the same year in 2011. I think this was my first real break in basketball. I got to go to Indiana to train. So parang yung first trip ko thanks to basketball, one of the first few places I got to visit.
Right.
But parang, okay, parang I think now people say, magaling na siya, nasama siya. Actually, I got cut. I was the last cut for the pool to go.
Wow.
Tapos parang kinausap yung parents ko. Parang saying like, we only have this amount of slots. So my parents actually paid for my trip with this team. So the team covered my expenses, my training, but my parents paid for my plane ticket to go and fly to join the team in 2011. Okay. So parang yun, making strides. Parang I was just cut there. If you guys could see some of the players there, you could see Hubert Cani, Renzo Subido, Prince Rivero, JJ Alejandro, Arvin Tolentino, guys who made it to the pros. Prince Rivero, parang yeah, also parang saling pusa ako. I was sabit lang na okay, you're tall. We see something a little bit, but you're not good enough that we'll take out one of these players for you.
Right.
So I was always in the program, just staying there, just always around na if they needed someone to practice, okay. If they needed extra bodies, I was there. Then in that same year, I got my big break to play in FIBA Asia.
Okay.
What happened here was yung parang narinig mo conflict with their mother teams, with their schools. So we had, I think, 4 players tied in with the NCAA high school that year. So parang that opened 4 slots. Being a national team, you really don't. It's not like a basketball team where you hold 20, 25. So if someone misses, okay, we can replace. So nasama ako by parang, okay, we need to fill up a roster of 12, 13. Okay, we need to add someone. He's been here with us since then. Why not put him in the lineup? And I got to play a little bit. Coach Sandy, Coach Dex, if you can see here some about another player who's in the program now, Jordan Heading.
Okay.
So parang 2011, okay, I got big break. I got to join the team. Parang, okay, is this something na can I play in college now? Parang, this is where also I started to learn to love basketball, because parang at the earlier years it was so much. It was just train. Right. Not really given the chance, not given the opportunity. Parang eventually discouraged. Parang why push through with this? I'm not getting any more opportunity. I'm getting better, yes, but parang when you train and you want results agad. And I wasn't getting those immediately. So parang, should I even push through with this? But after my parents pushed me to keep going, my brother kept pushing me to play, and I think this is when I started to learn to love the game, love the intensity, love the mental aspect. And 2012 again, I got to represent in the Siaba under 18 championship. 2012 again, I got to represent in the Siaba under 18 championship. We won that year, and I think this was my last stint with the youth team. Because this was the year na medyo mas flexible na yung mga players eh. So the players that they had on their list that they wanted to come in and play got to play. So again, but in these last two trips, like in 2011, in 2011 I got to go to Indiana. I also got to go to Nha Trang, Vietnam. And this year, I think this was in Singapore. Parang I had now 3 trips and I got to explore different parts of the world because of basketball. Parang you wouldn't think of going to Indiana, to
Right.
Nha Trang. So you get to experience new cultures as well. But I think I started to get my stride a little bit more. And funny thing was, it was also in 2012 where I actually got to play as an import in Thailand. So parang,
Oh,
wow. So from
wow.
2008 to not playing and now 2012. But then again, here it was more of a position need. So they
Okay.
needed a big to come in. Obviously, already got, as you can see, 30 and Matt there. So parang they're
Right.
looking for a big. So I got called up to go. So now parang four countries na yun. Thailand, nakasama na rin. Parang basketball opened so much doors for me. Parang, and here we gained so parang here build again so much more confidence. Natalo lang kami, pero at least yung defending champions who played us in the semis lost in the finals because napagod sila sa amin. But yun na, parang, wow, in parang 4 years from not playing to now playing for the national team to playing in Thailand, parang ang bilis eh. And opened so much doors. I met so many people, and you would think it would stop there, but also in 2014, I got to go to the Adidas Nations camp, which is a camp where only one team from each continent gets invited. I got to play guys like Jalil Okafor, Stanley Johnson, and Team
Wow.
USA. I
NBA
got to,
stars, NBA players.
yes, and I met Wayne Selden. I also got to meet NBA players like Derrick Rose, John Wall, Kenneth Farid, Derek Favors, Austin Rivers, who attended the camp, and parang yan yung first real taste ko ng world basketball na like we played Russia, we played Team Europe, Team Africa, Team USA also. Parang, okay, now from Asia, this is what the world stage is like. Not so structured really, but parang you can see the talent level, the body level, and now parang, okay, if I want to, parang in my story, parang, there's always a next level I have to hit. And parang if you stay in the same level, you're not gonna be able to compete with them.
Yeah.
At the same
yeah.
time, I played in the Asian Youth Games in 2014 in China. So Adidas Nations held in California. So that's six countries na parang.
Countries, yeah.
So 6 countries I've been to. Parang it really opened so many doors. And the AYG, parang I think what AYG taught me was no matter what the circumstances you're given, you have to push through. The team was formed late. We didn't really have training time. We missed one player. And we had a strong start. We won our first 3 games. Parang we were on the high. We think we can win this, parang, so we can go to the Youth Olympic Games. But at the same time, a harsh reality struck. We lost our last 3 games magkasunod. Heartbreaking losses. Parang, and we still had a chance in a way if we lost. We lost to, I think it was Iran or Iraq. I'm not sure. A Middle Eastern team. Parang we had a chance but to bounce back. Parang we had a game against Malaysia right after that. Would have more or less at least we finished in the top 6, top 5, which is really good.
Yeah.
Or top 4, but we lost that game as well. Parang business turnaround, and you learn there. Parang it's a harsh reality also the sport when you lose and you have to play again. There's so much mental fortitude that requires, and at the same time, parang you want to constantly keep winning. You want to keep getting to the next level. And now I'm more immersed now. Parang, okay, what do I have to do to be able to win next time? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different result. So if ever I had the opportunity to come back, what would I be able to do this? Would we still have, if I came back the same level, would we achieve the same result? Or parang you wouldn't expect that because everyone's getting better. And then eventually, I joined the Blue and White from 2014 to 2020. It was an incredible ride. The last parang 2008 I wasn't playing to 2014 to playing in Ateneo. Parang I never thought I would reach the level parang it was always okay. There's always a question now, will I be able to hit the next level? Parang, what do I have to do to get there? So parang there's always a constant need to innovate, a constant need to get better, constantly to analyze, work, get the results, parang theorize. You have to constantly develop, constantly innovate. And then eventually, parang after 2014, 2020, I got go to Gilas in 2021, and then again I got to have so many different experiences. I got to play Boban, Milos Teodosic. We recently came from Jordan as our last tourney. Parang it. I also got to go to Bahrain, Indonesia, and these aren't countries where when you're traveling you typically look at, but I got to see different parts of the world that I normally would have seen. Play against players that you only see Boban in TV, and now you see him in
Right.
the hallways. You play with
What
him.
what's Boban like in person? Because parang he
Um,
has such a larger than life personality. Eh. Ganun
so
din ba siya in person?
ganyan talaga siya in person. Honestly, he's one of those guys you'll never be afraid to. You'll only be afraid because he's big, but once you have that courage to go up to him, it's an amazing. You're not gonna regret it. Parang you should, if you see Boban, he will never turn you down. And
Yeah, actually, kinikilig ako for you when I saw the pictures of the team with Boban, and parang wow, what a moment! Because his personality really makes him one of my favorite players as well.
yeah, and so now I'm with Gilas. Parang basketball has opened the world so much to me, and parang looking back, I got to play in college. I got to meet NBA stars and players that I would only watch on TV. I also got to travel the world thanks to basketball. Parang ang layo na narating ko from that 2008 picture you saw at the start of the clip to now, and how much skill, how much confidence has grown. But journey siya eh. Parang there's always that next level that will drive you. Parang if you're satisfied na, you're not gonna go far. And parang that's always been the journey for me. Parang there's always a next level. There's always someone ahead of me. There's always someone who says that you can't do it. So parang that's what pushed me to get going. And thankfully, basketball has paid back even way more than what I've given to it. And that's what pushes me to continue to keep giving to it.
So thank you so much, Isaac. That's such an inspiring story. Questions are coming in, but we'll do all the Q&A later because
Sure.
right now we're going to hear from Coach Sandy. Coach Sandy will also tell us a little bit about the science behind coaching. Tapos sabay-sabay na lahat ng dami ng questions later on as we go get to the Q&A part of the program. Thanks, Isaac.
No.
Your floor, Coach Sandy.
Thanks, Gabe. So you heard from Isaac and his journey in his basketball career. And you've got a lot of questions with him for sure. But one thing that he didn't mention, but I'll mention now. He's actually one of the smartest players that we have. In fact, even us coaches, when we have when we forget something, we ask him about it. And he's a very a good example of a player who does not only have the basketball skills but also has he plays a lot using his head, and I think that later on we'll get a chance to see that all the more. Okay, so if now we prepared a small PowerPoint presentation for all of you. Okay, so we'd like to discuss the science of winning in basketball. Basketball is not just a physical sport, and we'd like to we approach this. The coaching staff approaches this in a like any other like math, like science. There is detail behind basketball, and there is a science behind basketball, as you can see. First of all, let's talk about what is science. Well, basketball being a science. What is the definition of science? Of course, we all know that um, you think about lightning and the elements, etc., etc. But another word for science is it's something that may be studied or learned like a systematized knowledge, and that's how we approach basketball. we like to teach basketball from this perspective, that we teach basketball in a scientific manner. There is a methodology behind everything that we do. And when we talk about methodology, the way that we proceed, these are some of the things that's very important for us. And you can see this in everything that we do. First, we talk about the theory, okay, concepts and principles, okay, and this can include such skills like dribbling the ball. What are the concepts and principles with dribbling a ball, staying low, using your fingertips, etc., etc. Okay. Now, practice is action and implementation. So we know the theory of how to dribble the basketball. Now we go out and do exactly this using different drills, and this is how we implement the theory through action and actual practice. And after this comes the analysis, documentation, or evaluation. We now evaluate our players, whether or not this player is already a good dribbler or he needs help with his athletic stance. He needs to stay lower. He needs to dribble with his eyes looking up instead of looking at the ball, etc., etc. And in this way, we can help our players improve on their weaknesses and shore up on their strengths. Okay, and we can talk about basketball some more. You know, basketball is dynamic. What do you say by being dynamic? You'll get an idea later on, especially with Coach Dex when he talks about strength and conditioning. Okay, but basketball is a dynamic sport, and it involves a lot of things. It involves sprinting, coming to a full stop, executing a V cut, okay, and lateral movement, jumping, okay, and that's just movement. When you talk about skills, you have to learn how to shoot, to pass, to dribble. You know, you need to learn how to defend these players who can shoot, pass, or dribble. And there's a lot of things. From one in 5 seconds, you might be on offense, and then the next second you have to sprint down on defense. You know, it's very dynamic, and there's a lot in play. For example, in some sports, like American football, for example, there's a defensive team and an offensive team. Diba? The defense only plays defense. Offense only plays offense. In basketball, you have to learn how to play defense and offense. In football, or soccer, some players are out of the picture. When the ball is on one side, the other players are just standing or resting. The goalie might not, the ball might not be in play with the goalie, then he's just standing around. You can't do that in basketball. Okay? So it's also, like I mentioned earlier, it's not just a physical sport, but it's a mental sport. This is how we approach it. You'll see some examples of how we approach the mental aspect of basketball. But we'd like to believe that, you know, in order for us, for our program to play at an international or world-class level, we have to use our physical abilities and also our mental abilities as well. Okay, there's a lot of when you talk about players, when you watch basketball, oh, that player is very smart. Okay, it's not just people who are just born smart. In everything, you need to study, you need to learn, and you need to improve. You need repetition, okay, in order for you to improve as a basketball player. And this is very important. You'll see an example when we talk about physical and mental side of basketball later on in our videos. And also, we need a lot of fundamentals in basketball. Okay, we start very basic fundamentals. I talked about dribbling, passing, shooting. We teach them all these fundamentals. It's just like, for example, in math. Before you can solve what's a perfect square trinomial, or any algebraic expressions, you must learn how to add, subtract, multiply, divide, etc., etc. Okay, and if you don't know that, then you cannot solve a perfect square trinomial equation. So it has to be we have to teach fundamentals and build from there, just like math. Okay, it starts from basics and we build from there. Okay, that's how we improve. Okay, Next slide, now turn you over to our strength and conditioning coach, Coach Dex Aseron. For all you Gilas fans out there, Gabe Norwood is not the longest tenured Gilas member or Jimmy Alapag. Coach Dex Aseron is the longest tenured Gilas member. He's been part of Gilas for how many years already, Coach Dex?
I started after 2011, coach.
2011. So
Yeah.
imagine that.
10
So,
years,
nung
10
12
years.
years old pa si Isaac.
Yes. And some of you are not haven't been born yet. But I think Coach Dex started 2011 when he was in grade school. You started out as a member of Gilas already, right? Okay, so
That's
I
right,
now turn
coach.
you over to Coach Dex.
Thanks, Coach Andy. Thanks for your very kind introduction. No. So I'll be talking about how do athletes take care of one's body. So I put up a term here. It's actually, so how do athletes take care of body? It's through rest. So REST. So how ironic, right? So you take care of your body by resting, not by training. But it's very important. So every aspect is important. So let's first look at so it's first is recovery. So then you E for eating. It's eating right. Then S is for sleep, and then T is for train. So that's the key components. So I'll talk about recovery first. Before, athletes usually don't talk about recovery, athletes and coaches. But now, in the new world, in our scientific world of training now, recovery is very important part of an athlete. It's very fundamental part of training, actually. So you won't develop your muscles without recovery. So usually, what we do, we have days off. So usually don't do anything. For example, you practice, for example, 4 times a week. So you rest for twice a week. So you really don't do anything. Because if you imagine during training or during lifting weights, we use our muscles and muscles break down. So you need also to rest. You need to refuel your muscles for your muscles to recover, for it to grow again. So
Is
it's
this a
so
complete rest, coach? As in even lifting weights or mga ganon, bawal on the rest days?
Uh, yeah, ideally there should be
Okay.
a really a day where you should not do anything, just sleep
Okay.
and eat.
Okay.
Technically, you should have at least once a week of that.
Okay.
So yeah, oh yeah, so yeah, so yun nga. So technically, you have 2 days of rest a week.
Okay.
So what do we usually do also for recovery? So probably you see LeBron James using ice packs after practice or after a game. So that's part of it. So we use ice. We use also hot tubs or hot compress. Then massage is also part of it. So if you don't have someone to massage you, you can use a foam roller
Okay.
to soften your muscles. Then usually I also advise our athletes during the recovery days to stretch. Also, we usually stretch before games, or I mean, and also before sleeping. Actually, it's better to stretch also, so that you'll not be sore the day after. And
Oh,
also,
okay.
we use compression garments. Now, there's such a thing as now as a compression machines na like yung mga Normatec. It helps
Okay.
in the recovery process also. It's basically to promote the circulation of the body. So mas maganda yung circulation ng katawan mo.
Okay.
So to para mas mabawasan yung mga swelling, yung mga pamamaga, mga ganun. So that's the recovery part. Another important part is nutrition, which is eating. It's actually eating right and drinking lots of water all throughout the day. So nutrition is very important also. There's a saying I believe in that abs are made in the kitchen. So if you want to have abs, you should eat right. Tama ba, George?
Tama yan, coach. Coach, makita mo lang yung sa'yo, coach.
Tama ba yan, Gabe? Okay ka ba, Chan?
Okay. Okay. Okay yan.
Ayan. So nutrition is very important actually. So what you eat is actually very important. Di pwedeng panay junk food lang, di pwedeng panay oily food, di pwedeng panay sugary foods also, sugary drinks. So yun. So you basically, if I have one tip pa lang, is just to avoid sugar and you'll be good na eh.
Okay.
So yun. And then the next step is sleep. So sleeping is actually the best form of recovery. So
Okay.
the studies, at least you should take a 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and then if you have time, also you should take naps. There is a scientific study that your athletes are predisposed to 1.5 times more prone to injury if they lack sleep. That's actually a scientific study. So almost twice you'll be prone to injuries if you lack sleep. So in the last part is actually yun, the is training. So what we do is to train. Of course, yung mga practices, part of it. And also important rin is the strength part. So you lift weights not only to look good, but most importantly to strengthen the muscles so that you won't get injured. So you only not lift weights, you also practice jumping like yung mga plyometrics. So you practice yung pagland ng one leg, two legs, yung mga ganun. And then we also do yung conditioning part, just like George told earlier, yung mga suicides to train the our anaerobic system. So basketball primarily is an aerobic sport. So it's usually a stop and go sport. So yung mga drills na ginagawa natin is usually stop and go also.
And I think you can see that, especially it's very important for basketball, the strength and conditioning aspect. That's why we're starting off talking about the physical aspect or physical side of basketball with Coach Dexter, because our athletes are in tip top shape or are in very good condition, then they'll be able to perform at a higher rate, and they don't get tired as often. They'll be faster, they'll be quicker, and that says a lot. That's very important, especially for us coaches, that we have our players playing at peak condition. And um, the science of basketball, or the strength and conditioning aspect, it's really scientific. It's not just Coach Dex just thought of these things to do. you know they actually studied it, and just like we go back to theory, theory, action, and analysis. Diba? So it's the same. It's the same. He still does the process or the methodology. Okay, thanks, Coach Dex, for that. I will come back to Coach Dexter later. Don't worry, he'll still be around. Okay, so thanks, Coach Dex. Gabe, maybe you can
So,
continue with the next slide, please.
yep. So I'm actually back. Nawalan ng kuryente, but it's back now. Here we go. Next slide.
Okay, now we talk about teaching basketball. Now there are two components to teaching basketball. One is individual skill development or teaching individuals, okay, and the other is team principles and concepts. And these are two separate things. Individual skills pertain to us making sure that one of the thrusts of the coaches in the Gilas Pilipinas team, especially Coach Tab Baldwin, is we're here to help our players improve individually. Okay, and that's very important. We believe that as each individual improves, the team improves as a whole. So that's very important for us. We put a lot of premium on teaching our players and getting them better with regards to their individual skills. So there is our system. There is a component wherein we focus on the individual members' improvement and their skill development, and the other one is team principles and concepts. How do we get these individuals to play together as a unit inside the court? Okay, how do they play as if they're one team instead of five separate entities? And that's very important because there's a lot of concepts in basketball, offensively and defensively. I think you can see here in this picture some of these. These are just some of the concepts, team principles and concepts that we have with regards to defense. And this is just defense, guys. We're not talking about offense.
Oh.
So there's a lot of components that are very important for us. And the way that we approach this is we approach this individually per concept. So we want to teach these concepts individually, but at the same time, okay, so these are the theories. And then how do we implement it in practice? Okay, we come up with drills that will help improve them with these principles, get repetition making these principles and concepts a habit. But at the same time, remember, basketball is dynamic. So we come up with drills that are complex, that requires two or more skills involved. Okay? So that parang multitasking. We come up with a drill that a lot of principles, there's individual skill involved, there's team principles and concepts involved. So we'll discuss some of these examples by showing you a couple of videos. Okay? And we talk about dribbling, okay? One of the basic fundamental principles of basketball. So we'll show you a video. Okay? This is actually a bit advanced already. Okay, so this is advanced. You can see that you don't use two balls in basketball, right? But we'd like to work on dribbling with two balls because at the same time you're practicing your left and right hand. Plus the coordination, if you can see different drills and exercises, we make it difficult for them so that they get better at it. It's like math. Your teacher won't give you 1 plus 1 always. Diba? It's gonna be 1 times 3 divided by 3 times 5, etc., etc. So it's the same thing with basketball. To improve your skill, we give you different drills that will help challenge you. Okay. Now these are all stationary drills. If you notice here, now there's more foot movement involved. So now there's more agility and dexterity involved. Okay. So these are some of the dribbling drills that we have. Now the next video that will show you now is an example of progression from stationary dribbling. Now we'll have full court dribbling, as you'll see in the video. So now this is full court, and as you can see in the video, this one side, okay, there are a lot of cones, and our players execute quick dribbles. Okay, now the other side, our players are practicing more game-like situation where they're bringing the ball down against a full court pressing defense. So these are two different concepts, but we're practicing this in one drill, and we're also incorporating, if you can see, finishes or layups. Okay, so this drill is an example of what we told you earlier. It's gonna be a combination of different skills that we're trying to to get our players to improve at. Okay. The next video that we'll show is passing. Okay. So this is not just normal passing, right? This is a bit complicated. It involves 3 lines and there are 2 balls. So if you can see, okay, the man in the middle has to pass, shift to the other side, get the ball, and then pass again. So there's a mental component in this drill because the man in the middle does not shift his attention to his other teammate, he'll get hit with the ball. Okay, and you won't hear the audio, but this is supposed to be a noisy drill where they're calling each other's names. Okay, so we added if you can see here now, it's 3 balls, and there's the middle guy is passing the ball with a chest pass, and the 2 guys on the side, they're pass. Oh, it's the other way around. Sorry, chest pass from the side and bounce pass in the middle. Okay, thank you. Now we'll look at the next video. Okay, now this is an example of something that, so it started with, just one guy dribbling, etc., etc. Now, we're practicing a team philosophy already, wherein this involves a 3-on-2 fast break, where there are 3 guys on offense and 2 guys on defense. Now, a couple of different concepts that we want to work on is decision making. There's always one guy open because there are only 2 defenders and there are 3 offensive players. So decision making, finding the open man. Okay, and we're working on passing, we're working on speed and agility. On defense, we're working on communication because there are 3 offensive players and only 2 defensive players. So their goal is to try to stop the offense from scoring. Okay, so it becomes a little more complicated. Okay, the next drill now is another progression from this barrage drill. It's 3-on-2. Now it's 3 versus 2 plus 1. Okay, so in this instance, you can see that there are 3 offensive players, but once the ball crosses half court, there's going to be a trailing defender that makes it 3-on-3. So the challenge here is the offense has to score and get to the basket, okay, in the short span of time that the third defender is not yet in the picture. Okay, so that's another case of our fundamentals. Adding another layer to make it more challenging and interesting, and we get different aspects of decision making happening in the game. Okay, so those are some of those, just some of the drills that we do. We do a lot more drills, but that's the physical, more or less, that's the physical component of basketball. Now we shift over to the mental component of basketball. And I already mentioned, when we talk about mental, we rely a lot on us coaches, but we rely a lot on our captain also, Isaac Go. So I'd like him to help us out with explaining some of the components that we have when it regards to the mental aspect of the way we approach or we teach basketball. So, Isaac, we have here, what's this? It looks like data. What's this data for?
Um, so these are certain stats where that won't typically appear on a stat sheet. Of course,
Right.
there's turnovers, offensive rebounds do appear, and assists do appear on the stat sheet, but there are certain other stats that provide an impact on the game but aren't tracked on the stat sheet. So, example, draw charges. We know that no one in the stat sheet will count how many draw charges you make, but if you get one, it positively affects your team. So the coaches have designed this way that um, these stats that even though don't show up on the stat sheets are positive and negative to the team's performance. So, example, missed free throws. So it does negatively impact your team if you miss your free throws. So the coaches have decided that okay, we feel that it gives a score of it has a weight of -1. So, but this at the same time, if you get an offensive rebound, like even though you don't score, it's a plus two for your team. +2,
Yes.
they feel like it has a weight of a +2. So not all of these stats have the same weight. Unlike when you look at the stat sheet, they seem like they all have the same weight for everything. But with this, it shows that they put the emphasis. Okay, we put turnovers as the number one priority because it's a -2 or -3, and then blow bys. But a missed free throw may be bad, but it isn't as bad as producing a turnover. So now this kind of governs how we make decisions on the court. Like, do you think it's going to be a turnover? Okay, maybe be a little bit more conservative. But at the same time, it's something that will help players become better because now you're chasing offensive rebounding, you're chasing rebounding touches, you're chasing deflections, which help your team win. And it just shows you that you become a more well-rounded player, that you can contribute. Like maybe you're an off day, you're shooting 0 for 10 at the field, and everyone say, "Oh, you
You
played
do all
bad.
the other things.
You didn't play well." But let's say he grabbed 5 offensive rebounds, no turnovers, 5 rebounding touches, 3 deflections. How can you say he had a bad game with those kinds of numbers? He possibly,
Right.
and there are still ways to possibly impact the game, just not scoring or the regular stats.
So we do this every day in practice. This isn't just
Right.
for games. And so this is like our grading system for for our players' performance. This is one aspect. Of course, there are a lot of other ways that we grade our players, but this is the analysis portion. We'll talk about theory, practice, and then this is the analysis. So this is where we come up. You see the red columns; those are negatives, and you see the blue columns; those are positives. Right. So this is our way of coming up with an evaluation of our players' performance, and of course, this impacts the team performance as well. Okay. Thanks
I
for that.
noticed that
Yes.
PUC has the highest +3. What's PUC?
A pickup
Pick up
charge.
charge.
Oh, okay.
Because it also might be the most difficult and most painful to execute because you're gonna take a charge, so you're gonna get
Right.
hit straight, and gonna absorb it. So we put extra emphasis on that, also
Okay.
for guts and courage behind it.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So we'll move on to the next slide. And no, when we talk about now, when we talk about scouting our opponents, now if you notice earlier, the theory, after that is practice, after that is analysis. If you
Yeah.
notice the graph, paikot siya. It's around and it points. So when it comes to scouting, theory doesn't go first. Iikot siya. Analysis goes first. So theory, practice, analysis. Di ba?
Yeah.
Ganun yung graph eh. So now, analysis goes first. Analysis, okay? Then theory. And then, so we analyze, for example, here. This is a play. What's this? Remember this play, George? Maybe you can say something about this play.
So parang parang what the coaches did was first teach us elements, certain elements like how to guard a pin down screen, how to guard a ball screen, and eventually when you face teams that put them together, now the coaches now have to theorize. Okay, because we taught you how to do it individually, we have to now put it together. Parang test eh. So parang test dati, parang I'll teach you addition, then subtraction, multiplication, but then sa laro, it's just combination na lahat eh. So now you have to be able to do it on the fly, be able to understand what the coaches have taught you. And at the same time also, there might be times where you have to learn how to read also, because bigla, teams are smart. Teams know that they're going to get scouted. Teams know that everyone's watching them. So they can add wrinkles, timing issues.
Wrinkles to the thing, yeah.
So you have to be ready for curveballs. So you must have the theory and the knowledge to know what's coming, but at the same time be able to adapt when something changes or something goes wrong.
So it starts with analysis. We analyze game tapes of our opponents. We analyze their play calls. If you notice, we knew the like play 3 is this, etc., etc.
Right.
So it starts with analysis. Then it comes to theory. The coaches come up with a game plan. How do we defend these sets? And then practice is implementation. So now we teach our players, and in the game they put it in practice. Okay.
Right.
Now, if it doesn't work, for example, on the fly, mid-game, the coaches now will analyze whether our defensive scheme is working. If it's not working, analysis. What's next? Theory. Come up with a different game plan. How do we stop this offense? And then and then we tell our players, okay, now we change our defense. We play zone, for example. Now their players will implement that or practice that theory. So that's the dynamic that we have in game, for example. Okay, next one, aside from scouting sets, we also scout players. Okay, because there are a lot of very good players. So in order for us to defend them, we actually scout and analyze them. If you can see here, if you can pause that, sorry, Gabe, you can go back to it.
Yep.
Okay. Normally, this is how we begin our individual scouting for our players. Okay, George, maybe just give a little bit of example what's written there. You don't have to read all of it, George, but you know what's that written there?
So what the coaches do is they typically describe how the player plays, what's his play style. So it could be a scoring point guard, a shooting big, slasher wing, and then they note down his strengths, what's his tendencies. Okay, he has a good pull up, maybe going right, but doesn't go left, or he will always shoot the floater with his left hand. Like if he goes, you know that it's coming. So they coaches list down what the player tendencies, strengths, weaknesses, and at the same time weaknesses. You have to expose those. So like, okay, he doesn't like to play defense, so you have to look for him to attack him. You have to, for example, he's not physical. He hates contact. In a game of basketball, sometimes even the most little advantage is magnified. So you have to take every opportunity to make it difficult for your opponents. Use their weaknesses against them at the same time. Don't let them go to their strengths.
Okay, we can see more of this video, for example. This video, as well as the earlier video we had, we give this to all our players. And it's just like homework for them. They have to study it and analyze it to the point that, they have to know what are the strengths and weaknesses of these individual players. And when they call play 3, what's play 3 and how do we defend it? Okay? So, it's just like studying in school. You have homework, you're preparing for a test, and the game is your test. So if you don't study, you might fail the test. Right? But if you study, you increase your chances of winning in a game. You increase your chances of passing the test. It's the same. So, there's a lot. That's why I told you guys, it's a lot of like school in basketball. There's not
Absolutely.
basketball. Yeah. Okay. Maybe we can proceed next. So that's we saw the video of Milos Teodosic, one of the hardest players to defend, and we were lucky to have played against him.
Yeah.
Aside from Boban, like George mentioned. Sorry, if I say George, that's what we call Isaac. Isaac George. He's Isaac George Go. So anyway, now the next one we have is this actually a page from there's this scouting app. It's called Synergy. You actually have to pay to be a member of and get this data. But this is just an example from the Synergy, and we used some of these data, and this actually Synergy compiles all the offensive possessions of all the other teams. Okay, so when we played Dominican Republic, we knew that these guards, for example, their favorite is the pick and roll. If you can, it's hard to see here. Actually, this is Philippines, I think. So even had stats of from Synergy of our game. So we wanted
Wow.
to see how does our team score, for example, and you could see that there's even a grade. It's excellent, average, poor. So fast break is excellent, for example, and then the shots that you take in the last 8 seconds of the clock, there's a grade. It's poor. It's 1 point per possession, etc., etc. And you can go to specific individuals that these players, for example, on the right side they score a lot. On the left side, it doesn't score a lot. So
Wow.
pick and roll situations, post up situations. So we actually get data, and we use that in our scouting report. So this is common with especially the high-profile teams. But of course, this costs a lot of money to subscribe to this. We're just fortunate that we got some help for this particular couple of games. I think for a couple of games, but
Yeah.
it's a very useful tool for us coaches to come up with a game plan and also to analyze how we play and where our weaknesses are and how do we improve. Okay, thank you for that, Gabe. So now I'll go to the next slide. So I guess we open now. This is the time we open up any questions from everyone. But before that, I'd like to share a quote. This is from Nikola Jokic. I believe the only muscles you need in basketball are the ones in your brain. As you can see, he told me that in this instance. He even texted me that. You can see in his phone. No, he texted me there. He's holding his phone. He texted me. So, and
The MVP.
he's one of our favorite players, not just because of course, he's tall, but he's a very smart player. He's very skilled and
Yeah.
smart player. So, we'd like to now, I guess this is the time that you can answer any questions, if there are any questions. And you can ask George, Coach Dex, or me.
Wow, we have a lot actually. Thank you so much. Um, just from watching, my first thought is, wow, parang napagod yung utak ko. How can it still be fun when there's so much for Isaac siguro? Is it still fun with that much analytics, with that much brain power going into it?
Definitely, because for me personally, I know that I'm not the most athletic guy. I'm trying to work to get there, but I know that um, I have to find the way, find an edge, and the mental side of the game has been where I've been able to find my edge a little bit, and it's just exciting. Always something new, always something developing. Parang learning never stops, and it's been an enjoyable process.
And I'll have a follow up. The smartest player you think you've ever played against?
Probably Milos.
Really?
Because when you watch him play, we know what he's gonna do. He still gets to where he wants to go. He manipulates. Well, he wasn't even. It seemed like he wasn't even trying. He was manipulating all of us. Like even though we thought we were one step ahead, he was actually 2 steps, 3 steps ahead of us. And sometimes when he whips the ball to an open guy, we're just looking like, how did he see that? How is he free? And we're like, this is gonna be a long game. So probably Milos.
Best point guard in Europe nga, di ba? Yung ano niya. Okay, we have questions over from the kids who sent them ahead, and we're gonna flash them on screen. Why are there so many assistant coaches?
I guess, yeah, as you can see with our discussion here, basketball is not just go out and play. In fact, with all the data that we have, we really need a lot of coaches also to handle all the data. Specifically defense, offense. It's very hard. Like we have Coach Dex, for example, with regards to weights, strength and conditioning. I would defer to him. We need him. We need him in the team. So there are a lot of different roles for all the other assistant coaches in the team, and it depends on, like, the other teams have specific roles for each assistant coach also.
Right, right. I swear talaga, going through all the drills and your presentations kanina, sumakit ang ulo ko. So I fully understand why there are so many assistant coaches. Next question. My mom says I can't wash my hands after playing basketball because I will get pasmado. Is this true, Coach Dex?
Actually, it's not true. There's no science to it. Wala ngang pasma na translated, walang translation. So it's not true. You can actually wash your hands after. It's actually encouraged, especially now during the pandemic. After playing, you wash your hands, you put alcohol. So it's not true. So you can wash your hands
Right away.
right away. Yeah.
Parang yun ata ang tumatak sa akin dito na hindi pala totoo yung pasma at pasmado.
Even
I
take a
see
bath,
players
Coach Dex,
with...
di ba? Coach
What?
Dex, you can
Sorry.
take a bath right after. Pwede, di ba?
Yeah, you can actually
Pwede
take a bath
pa.
after. Yeah, there's
Maligo.
no it's not actually bad to take a shower after playing. It's actually better so that you won't have BO or yung body odor. So yun yung cause ng body odor. Actually, for me, actually from what I read also, because of the bacteria that accumulates with you after playing, so all the sweat and everything, then you don't shower, so you don't clean it. So the bacteria accumulates. So pag pinapawisan ka ng papawisan all throughout the day, so mas na yun, it's a
Mas yun
process na
yun.
tuloy-tuloy na. Oh.
And does it
So
matter
kaya
if it's a
nagkakaroon ng
cold
body odor.
Does it matter if it's cold shower or hot shower after?
Actually, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it
Okay.
doesn't. Yeah.
Okay, there are more questions. I see players with tapes on their bodies. Para saan yung tape? How do you know where to put them on?
Actually, you put tape depends on kung saan yung masakit na part. And actually,
Okay.
there's different types of tapes actually. There's the white tape, which you put usually on the ankles, parang to prevent it from moving. So it's to stabilize your ankle. So to prevent sprains to prevent ankle sprains actually. And there's another kind, yung mga muscle tapes, yun yung mga different colors. So may beige, may pink, may blue, iba-iba. So you can put it in any part of your body actually. So it depends on kung masakit ba siya or you want to facilitate the muscle. So maraming uses yung muscle tape. So yun.
What does it do? Para bang, sorry for the comparison. Para ba siyang salon pass? Ano bang?
Actually, no.
Okay.
Kasi sa salon pass, it has an liniment or
Yeah.
may chemicals to it. So parang it helps you feel less pain. Pero yung mga muscle tapes, it actually it helps facilitate the muscles, or sometimes if you have swelling sa ankles or swelling sa knees, it helps lift your skin up. So it depends on how you put it. So for example, in the hand, it helps bring your skin up so that there's circulation. So it will
Okay.
help lessen the swelling.
So pwede rin siya sa mukha. Kung...
Actually pwede, pero we haven't used it yet. We can try it once. Yeah, we should.
Okay, next question. We have a lot. What are the mental and emotional challenges you go through when you are on and off season? Maybe Isaac or Sandy.
Siguro on season the problem medyo mas relax siya off season because you have a little bit more time, a little bit more leeway. There's no pressure of games. But siguro pag in season, this like in the UAP, you only have 14 games. So parang you want to maximize those. You want to perform. So if you play bad or you lose, parang it takes a toll on you. Sometimes it's like sayang yung one game na yon. And at the same time, parang you have to flip the switch real quick. You can't stay too long because let's say in the next 3-4 days, you're playing another team who wants to beat you. So parang yan yung struggle paminsan na you have to have the next game mentality na There's this incredible quote I heard na parang there's a Netflix documentary. She says that she has a 24-hour rule. No matter if you win or lose, you only have 24 hours to either sulk about it or be happy about it, then get back to work. Maybe the coaches know the name of the girl, but I forgot what was her name. So, parang you can't get too high or get too low.
Buti pa kayo because the fans still think about your game-winning shots before an FEU and Lasal. But ikaw pala nakalimutan mo na pala after 24 hours. Next question, here we go. If you have a strength and conditioning coach, do you have a nutritionist? And what diets are recommended for players? At iba-iba ba for players?
Coach
Yeah,
Dex?
I'll answer that. Actually, ideally, you should have a team should have a nutritionist to cater to the individual needs of a player. So it's aside from having a nutritionist, it's ideal if it should be also be individualized. So what George or Isaac is diet is different from, for example, Mike or Matt Nieto's diet is. So it's better if it's individualized.
So even for a player like Bo Belga, may nutritionist, may individualized ano yun?
Dapat.
Nutrition plan siguro yun.
Yeah. That he should have, yeah. Pero
Okay.
not all no, not all teams and not all players have nutritionists. Eh. So in a perfect world, in a perfect setting, all teams and all players should have a nutritionist.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it's hard because, for
Yeah.
example, George, what was one of the struggles that you had? Anong si Coach Tab? What did he tell you?
Parang Coach Tab wanted me to remove rice from my diet, so basically a keto diet. The struggle with that was I felt really weak. I got lighter, but parang hindi okay yung pagka light. There's some players who get so much stronger when they got light. I felt I got weaker, parang no energy whatsoever. So for some other people it might work, but personally for me it didn't work. Na mas naging focus ako na balanced diet, being a little bit more conscious with portion control and the kind of food I was eating. So yan yung naging diet ko rather than completely taking out rice.
Okay. And are there people who are advised to eat more?
Yes. Siguro the example would be like Gian Mamuyak, Tyler Tia,
Yes.
who have explosive metabolism, so they struggle to put on weight. So even though they're spending time in the gym, parang they can't put on weight, put on muscle. So for them, they have to find the ways to get the calories in, to eat a little bit more. So it really depends what's your goal and what's your goal talaga to help you identify what diet you should do.
Right. We have more questions lined up, but if you're watching on the feed or with us in the call, you can type it and we can ask it for you. You can raise your hand. We can invite you into the call. But let's flash the next question that we have. Is geometry, wow, is geometry considered in gameplay? Coach Sandy.
Actually, we talk a lot about especially si Coach Tab talks about spacing, talks about angles a lot, especially when you cut to the basket. Talks about angles, and that's very important because you don't and quickest way between 2 points is a straight line. Diba? We know that, diba? So quickest way between 2 points is a straight line. So even when it comes to shooting, for example, so instead if I'm gonna shoot, the ball is here, and I bring it up straight instead of shooting like this. So quickest way is between 2 points straight line. So we want like you to shoot straight up, get your shot straight. It shouldn't miss left or right, etc., etc. Even your shooting form, 90 degrees. Some coaches teach that a lot.
Right.
Yes, yeah. So there are a lot of geometry in basketball. Even the shot release, kasama din yon. Some players shoot pag ganyan, some shoot, so the geometry, marami rin geometry.
It's so much. There's a comment actually that I'd like to show on our feed from one of our regular kids, Simazi. Thank you so much for the info. That made my brain explode. That it's such a hugely mental game pala. There's also from our private chat, this is for George from Migs Assis, from someone who was always the last one cut to being the team captain, what are leadership qualities every leader must possess coming from someone who's been through it all?
Um, I think the first one is hard work because it's very difficult to gain the respect of people. Parang, oh, sige, tara, let's go. But then, di mo rin ginagawa yung work. Parang, you need to have that for people to respect you, for people to follow you. And then siguro is be resilient, be accepting to challenge because it's not always gonna be smooth sailing. For example, like if we lost the Korea game, all of a sudden now people are gonna bash. Why did we bring an all cadet team? We should have brought
Right.
the pros. We might have a better chance. Or um, it's just you have to be ready for adversity. You never know when it's gonna come. And being resilient, parang you have to lead in times of struggle when let's say the team's struggling. You have to be there to help the team, to push the team. Maybe it's one more practice, one more sprint, one more shot, one more possession. Parang, and I think the last one is also you have to learn to respect everybody. Because I know what it feels like to be cut. I know what it feels like to be on the bench riding it. I also know what it feels like to be a starter. Parang, each person goes through, you have to be human. You have to understand what each player is going through. If it's a slump, if it's a hot streak, if some players complain, like, I'm not getting playing time, or parang players are saying, man, I think coach doesn't get me. But you have to be there for them. You have to be human with them, not just their teammate, but their friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. There's a follow-up question from Migs Assis as well. For Coach Sandy, having 9 UAAP championships, would reaching the Olympics be your biggest accomplishment?
Uh, I think, reaching the Olympics is special because it's not mine, it's ours. I mean, when wear the Gilas shirt, Gilas jersey, it's Pilipinas eh. It's so it's different. It's different. And you're doing it not just for yourself eh. So I won't say that I it's not my biggest achievement, and we're here basically really to serve the country, and we recognize that, and those are very big shoes, big responsibility, so it goes beyond the individual na. But definitely, it's a big achievement for all of us talaga, so that's the hope and that's the goal. Hopefully, we get that.
All right, thank you. We have time for the last three questions. So we're gonna be surprised and see what's going to flash on the screen. Eto, what muscles do you normally focus on training for athletes?
Biceps. So, what's next? What's next?
Yeah, actually, you train everything. So it's about movement. So you train the movements that you do in basketball. So you train the jumping, you train your shooting, your shoulder presses. So it's basically everything because muscles not does not work individually, but it's a synergy. So you train the movements, not the muscles.
Okay, I like that. You train the movements, not the muscles. So it's whatever makes the movement better,
Yep.
whatever muscles are involved, that's what you train. Two more questions. Next question, please. What did you want to be before getting into sports as a career? Yan.
Uh, Ako siguro, I would have probably been an engineer. What's that, Coach Dex?
Ako, probably, teacher. I actually started teaching
Yes.
and coaching at the same time. So I taught Araling Panlipunan dati. So, yun, I'll probably be a teacher.
Next.
Oh, probably a doctor. So that's my childhood dream.
Nice. Very nice. And then one final question from our three guests. Is it Vian? Is it better to have longer arms or longer legs in basketball? Everyone has to answer and you have to choose arms or legs. Go.
Nakaisip na ako na I would say longer arms. Just parang,
Why?
you can always get, if you don't have long legs, you can always try to get quicker and quicker. Parang, but if you have short arms, wala ka talaga magagawa eh. So parang, I would rather have something that I can't train and then just train what I need to train.
Right. Dex, Coach Dex.
I probably have longer legs because I'm short eh.
Appear tayo dyan. Coach Sandy.
Ako siguro longer legs then shorter arms kasi nung bata ako mahilig ako sa dinosaur so parang flex, di ba? Parang ganun. So that's what I'll choose.
T-Rex arms. And with that, we'd really like to thank you so much, Coach Sandy Arespacochaga, Coach Dex Aseron, and Team Captain Isaac Goff for being our guests today in our Out of This World conversation. Any final words for our kids before we say goodbye?
Coach Dex?
Siguro lang just what I've said earlier. Just eat right and sleep long.
George?
All right. So thank you so much to all of you. And thank you all to have been tuning in to Out of This World Conversations. This was our conversation with members of the Gilas Pilipinas men's basketball team. We do this every Thursday of September, Out of This World Conversations, where we have conversations that are out of this world with adults with amazing careers. And next week, we're going to have another episode, Thursday, 4 p.m., right here on the Vivita Philippines Vivistop Baguio page. And from basketball, we're going to space this time. We're going to have engineer Nathan Racimo with us with Mula Terminal. He's a radiation and propulsion engineer, and he's going to be talking to us about what it's like to send a satellite up into space. So if you have space dreams, I think Engineer Nathan would be ready to tell his stories and answer your questions. And if you are a regular Vivistop Baguio member, in October, we'll also be kicking off our film festival, our Fright Festival, Scary Film Festival at the end of October and throughout October on Saturdays. We're going to be having Tinker sessions. We're going to send you kits. And one of the things that we're going to teach you is we're going to be teaching you how to do stop motion animation. So we'll be making the announcement very, very soon. Stay tuned for that. On behalf of the whole Vivistop Baguio team and Vivita Philippines, my name is Gabe Mercado. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.